It's July 17th, 2021. And here's a couple scanners I picked up at a recent Hamfest. An old guy was selling them. He was honest. He told me they didn't work, so I picked them up pretty reasonable. Got them home, and I found out that the electroluminescent displays in both of them were shot. And of course, with the age of these radios, they go back quite a few years. No parts available. But I found on the internet some guys that had bought EL panels, and they actually cut them to fit these radios. So I was able to buy, this is the old electroluminescent panel. There's a part number on it. Anyway, I bought a generic panel. I cut them, and it works. So this unit on the left, the only problem with that one was the panel. That one's working. This one's got a problem with it. Okay, the volume's up full blast. You can see it's scanning, and when I try to open the squelch, it locks, but there's no audio output. Here you can hear a little buzzing. So I'm going to have to troubleshoot this. There is a service manual available on the internet. So you get a schematic and some pictorials. This is the version blown up on the monitor. What I had to do is tile the thing and glue together a bunch of different pages to make one giant schematic that I could read, although it's still pretty hard to read. That's a schematic. Unfortunately, the board pictorial is almost useless. You can make out some of the part numbers, but a lot of them you really can't make them out. I've blown this one up. This is made out of 4 sheets glued together. So I think what I'll end up doing is using the schematic on the monitor here, which I can blow up. Some of these numbers it's hard to read. Is a pin number an 8 or 9, or is it a 4 or 5? It's hard to tell. So anyway, the next step will be to go into this unit here and try to troubleshoot it and find out why we're not getting any audio. So stand by. Well, so far I found a number of problems with this board. IC1, which is in the third IF, there's some intermittence, and I found on the back of the board here, under a microscope, a lot of bad solder joints. A lot of surface mount parts on here, but I'm going to have to redo most of this board. I also noticed these two caps. I'm not sure if they're leaking or if there was some type of an adhesive used, but these may be leaking. I'll have to check those out too. If you ever take one of these apart, pull my hair out until I found a screw in here, a hidden screw. I finally found the darn thing. I thought, what's holding this board in here? So it's probably a good idea to take pictures when you take one of these apart. Lots of parts. This is a nice radio, but I think the problem here is just old age and cold solder joints. So I'm going to work on those next, and then hopefully put it back together, and then we'll see if we get some RF through it. So stand by. Here's an example of some of the bad solder joints I found on this thing. In particular, check this one out right here. That looks pretty bad. and I can zoom in on it. Let me focus it. It's completely, the solder's completely open. And there's quite a few like that. I'm going to have to redo the whole board. A lot of cold solder joints. Some of these don't look so hot either. Anyway, I'll do some more reworking on this board and then we'll see what we find. Hopefully we'll get the right one. Here's another shot of that one I found that's real bad. And you can see it on the microscope here. Right there. That's not that's not making any contact. Boy, I'm kind of unsteady when I get magnified. Anyway, this is the spot on the board, right there. The more I inspect this circuit board here, I'm finding more and more bad solder joints. Pretty much the whole board here, everything that's through hole, for some reason, and this must have been at the factory, and I read somewhere, I think it was, I don't think it was the 2006, but it was the 2004 maybe that had really bad soldering because of some problem with the initial batch at the factory. And I don't know if that's the problem here, but pretty much this whole board's going to have to be resoldered. So I think the best thing to do is I'm going to divide it up into a number of quadrants and just start resoldering. Using the microscope here, they really show up. So the next step is going to be a long process of pretty much resoldering all of these through hole solder points. And I'm going to do the whole board because if I find a few of them now, I'm sure that others will pop up. And you know, this solder and all the temperature cycling, this solder gets fractured over time with all the temperature cyclings. So I guess the only alternative is to take the time. There's a couple caps in there too I'm going to check, I think need replacing. So that's going to be pretty much this afternoon's job. This radio has a mind of its own. I was sitting here and all of a sudden it started working, so it looks like I have an intermittent problem, unfortunately. I'm feeding in a signal here at 445 megahertz, and as I bring up the amplitude and open the squelch, lo and behold, I've got signal coming through it. Well, this unit is finally fixed, and I had a couple caps to replace, but the main problem was bad solder joints. They were all redone and the unit's back working now, as you can see. Hello, hello. Anyway, the electroluminescent displays, which are no longer available, that I showed earlier in this video, what you can do is buy a generic one, like this one here. And obviously it's a little bit big, so what you do, oh, by the way, the beeping, that's because I don't have the 9-volt memory backup battery in, and it beeps like that to let you know that there's no battery or the battery's low. But since I'm not going to have this thing in use right now, I'm not putting the battery in. But anyway, if you look at this panel, this electroluminescent panel, that runs off of, right now I got it running off of a 12 volt supply here. One of these little cans I put together. These contain old recycled 18650 cells out of computers, power supplies, batteries. And then I just put a voltmeter on and some terminals. And then they're running this little panel here. You can build them in little things. I build them in little metal containers. Here's one here. I need to paint this one before people laugh. Teddy bear. Anyway, it holds the batteries good, and you can put a barrel connector on the top and plug in and a switch and a voltmeter, and you're all set. But anyway, back to the EL panel here. What you can do is cut a panel out of this big one. And I would never have thought of this, but a guy on YouTube did it. I couldn't believe it. He took a scissors and he cut the exact same size out of a bigger panel, and he lined up the connectors here so he could solder them in. And that's what I did on this one. It's a little bit darker color. But anyway, these electroluminescent panels come, and this one here has a little inverter with it. It automatically converts 12 volts to the higher voltage, but you can buy just the plain panel also. Anyway, that's this project done. These are nice radios. I always wanted one of these years ago. They were really expensive scanners. I forget what I paid for these. I think it was, the both of them non-working, I think was like 10 bucks, something like that. But if you get one of these, check all the solder joints, because there was a lot of them that were cold joints. So, thanks for watching, and that's it for this one. Bye for now.